This is Voice and Vitality coming at you once again with another vital message. And I call this segment American Apartheid. It is time for America to really open its eyes and realize that we, as so-called black people, have been in a American apartheid in this country. Now, of course, this isn't the only America, the US of A. There's three Americas. There's Central America and there's also South America, where throughout the Americas we have had injustices. We've had to deal with hate and racism. We've had to deal with oppression and suppression, disenfranchisement, chattel slavery. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So I'm not really here to go down an extreme list of things. But American apartheid, especially in this nation and country, has vaguely just gone overlooked, except for the people who it actually has been affecting this whole time, and that is our community. My brothers and sisters have endured a lot. They've seen a lot. They've experienced a lot. And the trauma, the emotions, the thoughts, the way it's made us feel, and then just really coming to a boiling point, and really just being fed up. Centuries of this. And then after chattel slavery ends, then it's like you go into a Jim Crow, and you almost go into a new version. Never really feeling, or I'm not going to say never even feeling, it hasn't ended. It has yet to end. It has, if anything, progressed the entire time. It is what it is. American apartheid, so that you kind of understand what I mean, is really, persistent poverty, disenfranchisement, segregation, discrimination, at degrees that was deliberate, on purpose, literally creating a system in place and executed this. And it has remained ongoing ever since. This is what we as a people have experienced throughout pretty much all the American cities, throughout the rest of the other two Americas. Those towns and those cities and those areas, those were ports, for us coming in from our ancestors. And, and upon landing here in these areas, and of course these are not the only ones, but I'm just focusing on the American ones right now. Upon landing on those areas, life has, in many ways, just really felt like a living hell. There's just no other way to put it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is what it is. But American apartheid really shows how we, as so-called black Americans, in the ghettos, and being the downtrodden and, the most unemployed, and the list goes on and on, that was created by those who are opposite of us, and we know who that is, during that whole first half of the 20th century. And this was really done in order to, isolate us from everyone else and create growing problems and issues, within our communities and our specific populations. And, despite fair housing, That was enacted in 68 here. You know, that segregation still lingers today. It's still being perpetuated today. It's interlocked. It's grown. It's institutionalized. It is practiced daily. It is pretty much government policy in many ways, enacted and not taken off the table, not taken back. If anything, it's up the ante, pretty much. And in some areas of where we live, in some cities, it's intensified in a lot of ways. There was a term I think I had read once that mentioned something about hyper segregation. That's a segregation almost like, injected times 5, which is a very interesting, word or phrase. But there was an author by the name of Douglas Massey and Nancy Denton. And they wrote a book literally called American Apartheid. And that is an interesting book because it goes much, much deeper into this than obviously what I am stating, but it really, really hones in and zeroes in the problems with this, among other things, of course. But American Apartheid pretty much, it created us as the underclass. And economic downturns or pandemics or recessions or depressions, they've always hit us more. They've always affected us more. And then be it that we have had to live and work in these conditions of this discrimination and segregation and disenfranchisement, it has, again, up the ante. It's increased the rate at which this continues for us. Brings us into more poverty. It creates more unemployment. It's breaking up families. It's causing even more of a bigger wealth gap, which we know a wealth gap between us and our counterparts. Well, we know that's always been a problem, definitely. I covered some of this in a previous segment that I did prior, about 1,000 miles of separation, where it would really take us to pretty much be separated from everyone else to really deal with this issue, to really come out of this issue, to really solve this issue, and we doing it for us, by us, pretty much. But you can go to that segment to check out what I said there. So we've grown up in obviously hard environments. We've grown up in racial hate, almost a hate climate here in America. And then we've seen the attitudes, the practices, behaviors, the actions, the inactions, the feelings, the thoughts, the body language. You name it. It just seems like year after year, it just seems to increase more when it comes to us. We really are seen as 3/5 of a human. We really are seen as the downtrodden. We really are seen as the lowest, or less than, unequal, and seen as subhuman, or in this country, 3/5 of a human. And in some ways, I think we're still seen as honestly just being slaves and absolute property. There's really no other way to put it. But because of American apartheid, and of course, South Africa had their own apartheid, which was extremely similar if not dead on to it, to what we've gone through here. It's just that obviously it was back home, on the continent of Africa. But because of this American apartheid, it has really decreased our chances or limited our chances of really having true success being here. Some people say mainstream America, or really being in conjunction or on the same level of equality in this society here. But that's just has never happened. And I think the intention is of it never really happening for us. And again, that's been just one of many problems that we have gone through, have had to endure. And the fact that it's really seen from our counterparts, our opposites, it doesn't really seem like an issue for them because they've never had to deal with it. Because of privilege. And for those of them who didn't put us down or didn't create these things, they've lived off of the ones that did create it. And they are profiting from it. They have the privilege from it. So this is a very systemic problem that is still resonating very, very much in this country and others, but very much in this country of the good old so-called US of A. Where it's liberty and freedom, but we've never seen it. We've had sisters and brothers even serving in the military and come back here and killed. Come back here and not treated fairly. Not granted the same freedoms and liberties that they've actually fought for, that their ancestors even fought for, and never truly seeing any of that. Dealing with police, which started as slave patrols, acting as judge, jury, and executioner, which is not their job, but back then, technically it was. And that attitude still resonates today. Casual Killing Act, back in the 60s, still applies today. Fair Housing Act, back in the 60s, 68. But yet we still have problems with housing. Higher mortgage rates, all these things. I'll go into more of that in the previous segment. But I'm not really going into that right now. We are living in American apartheid. It is what it is. People can put it off. People can ignore it. People can act like it don't exist. Well, it's not happening to me. Maybe this is an oversimplification. This is an exaggeration. Whatever the case may be. But it is what it is. And for those of us, my people, my sisters and brothers, who have dealt with this, along with our ancestors, even grandparents, all this, have had to deal with these issues. Year after year. Whole generations, centuries now. And it shows no signs of slowing down. It shows no signs of letting up. It shows no signs of decreasing. It shows no signs of being fixed or resolved. And it definitely shows no signs of being eradicated. Even within South Africa, they had apartheid, but in some areas down there, has it really stopped? If you notice, some of it really still hasn't stopped. And it's certainly here, in this place, which used to be called Turtle Island at one point, it definitely still rolls on, still lives on. They talk about the American flag and old glory. But how can we salute or stand for a symbol of a country and a nation that has never treated us as equals? that had systems in place, systemic racism deeply so, to make sure we were not equal, to sort of keep us in our place. But yet you want us to stand and raise and salute something that stands for the very things our ancestors have bled on. Stand for something they fought for but didn't see the personal freedoms after they returned. That flag doesn't exactly mean the same to us as it does our opposite counterparts. And then, not to mention, let me go a little bit further with that. If you go into the Star Spangled Banner, the national anthem, and you go beyond the first verse into the next couple of verses, which are definitely racial hatred, you definitely will not like what you read. Of course, they don't sing the other verses because of what they state. But as long as we sing the first one, which is semi-okay, then all is well. Well, maybe all is well for those that have never gone through American apartheid, who've never gone through and lived through massacres, maybe never gone through discrimination and disenfranchisement and poverty-stricken levels and huge wealth gaps that is just centuries and centuries were in the making and still resonate today. We don't see this place as the same as our counterparts. And then again, how could we? With everything that has happened. And the fact is, everyone knows what has happened. But, no one wants to speak about it. If we don't speak about it, it's like it didn't happen. It's like it didn't take place. But for us, not only has it happened, not only does it happen, but it's something we constantly live through. It is something we constantly have to deal with on all levels, on all aspects, all forms, shapes, and instances. It surrounds us. It's engulfed us. And asking for change during American apartheid, asking for change, looking for change, nearly begging for change, and it's never taken place. It's because there's been no intentions of us ever really rising or being good in this nation. It is what it is. At one time, we couldn't even be citizens. Up until the 13th or 14th Amendments, we couldn't even be a citizen. And even though we're technically citizens now, we're still not even treated as a citizen. But then being a citizen is not exactly a good thing anyway. Sovereignty is better than citizenship. Being able to roam this area and this world naturally and freely as the Most High saw fit. Naturally, inalienable rights, which, of course, this country was built on natural inalienable rights. Equality for all. But those things have not happened for us. And there was never any tension of those things happening to us or ever applying to us. It is what it is. Whether you look inside or you look on the outside. We are a people that are plagued and live and even died within this system in consistent, systemic American apartheid. I was not going to be long on this segment. I think the point is made. And I'm going to keep bringing out more points and more history that, Americans seem to want to forget. Would rather us forget it. which in doing so is like asking water not to be wet. But how can we forget something that consistently and continues to happen? How are we going to forget something when you keep sticking a salty finger into the open wound? Never allowing it to heal or close. How are we going to forget something where we're heated? It seems everywhere we go. Words that we hear, actions that we see, the feelings, general consensus towards us. How are we going to forget that when it's a constant? But yet when we speak on this, it seems like we're whining, complaining, and well, don't they should be grateful they have it better now. Well, maybe for those it's never happened to. But unless you have been in these shoes, these dark melanated shoes, you've walked in these shoes, you've experienced these shoes, you've lived, bled, and died in these shoes, you've worked your fingers to the bone in these shoes, then you're never going to understand. And it's so easy to judge and speak from places that you've never actually been in or lived in, or shoes you've never walked in. It's so easily to speak from areas that you've never had an involvement in, other than to oppress and suppress others. Subjugation instead of liberation. Oppression and suppression instead of freedom. A huge wealth gap instead of wealth building, wealth possession, wealth left for family and generations, having been built and sustained through a legacy. But those are not things that we can speak from. Like I always say, it is what it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is what it is. It's still going on. It's where we are and it's where we've been. The real question is, how much longer are we going to have to endure? That is the million-dollar question. We need 1,000 degrees of separation. And not just away from this nation, but any nation that has fed into and has had anything to do with our consistent plight. Set up systems against us having real freedom, liberties, and rights, and equality, and true justice. For any nation, which most have done this, the best thing we can do so that we don't deal with the whole segregating thing is that we isolate. We separate, we isolate. Because what else is there left to do? All right, brothers and sisters, this vital message from me to you. And the segment again was called American Apartheid. Again, I hope I gave you something to think about. I'm pretty sure that this will resonate with all of you as it has with myself, because we have lived it and we have breathed it day in and day out. This is the end of the segment. Take care, everyone. Stay safe out there. Stay prayerful and stay hopeful. And much love and peace to each and every one of you, my beautiful black brothers and sisters. This was American Apartheid. And this is Voice and Vitality signing off. Take care.